The Supreme Court's expected to rule on multiple challenges to President Trump's new executive actions as early as this week. The White House filed emergency petitions on 4 of the president's policies, resuming deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act, ending birthright citizenship, ending Education Department grants, and the legality of firing of thousands of federal employees are all on the table. Let's bring in ABC's Devin Dwyer to break it down for us. Devin, a federal judge also just blocked a policy allowing the deportation of migrants to countries other than their own without giving them notice and a chance to argue against their removal. So how do you expect that to factor into the ACLU's argument against these deportation flights?
Yeah, there are 2 separate cases that are playing out this week, Diane, and there is so much going on this issue of deportations right now. But federal courts are really taking a close look at how the administration is sending people to El Salvador. We've all seen the pictures of those alleged gang members. Donald Trump has talked loudly about getting them out of the country, but the real legal questions are, how is this happening? Is the administration following the law? The most talked about case, of course, the one that's going to be back on Thursday, was those 2 plane loads of people about a week or so ago where the president sent them down there with, under the Alien Enemies Act with very little to no due process, sweeping up people alleged of a crime, sending them out of the country. Yesterday, we took a closer look at this other case where the administration is now prevented from sending people to El Salvador if they're not Salvadoran. Without any notice or any due process, a judge said that they have to get that. And already just yesterday, the administration sent 7 Venezuelans to El Salvador. And so we're trying to find out today, Diane, whether the administration may have violated that judge's order. So separate cases, they speak to each other, but just underscores how unusual this arrangement is for the government to be sending people to another country to be held in prison.
Devin, based on past rulings, is there any clear signal from this court on how far it's willing to let a president go when it comes to sweeping deportation orders?
It's a great question. Typically, the Supreme Court, especially this conservative majority, Diane, has been very deferential to the President of the United States and their executive power to implement immigration policy. So I would expect the Supreme Court to sort of out of the gate be deferential to Trump's desire to really crack down on undocumented immigrants and to conduct deportations consistent with the law. But this is also a Supreme Court that we have learned is not a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. Even with the 6 justices on the right, 3 of them appointed by Trump, there is an ample record. Just go back and look at the so-called Muslim travel ban, just as one case from the first Trump administration that was blocked out of the gate. So as the Supreme Court now prepares to weigh in substantively for the first time, we'll get a picture that will help answer your question of just how much they're willing to stand up to Trump when it comes to a number of these policies that are really stretching the extent of the law and pushing the boundaries of presidential power.
Devin, how is the court dealing with this influx of emergency cases? And what's the biggest concern about handling these tight timelines?
Yeah, I have been up at the court frequently, as you know, Diane, and I got to tell you, there is a palpable feeling that the tidal wave is about to hit the court. They are, without saying so, but certainly those of us who are there all the time can see it in the schedule. They're creating space for the wave of emergency petitions that is coming. Those sorts of things take time to deal with. And so, the 4 issues that are before the court as of this week, and we expect at least 1 or 2 of those to be addressed this week, it's just the beginning. As you know, more than 100 cases against Donald Trump have been filed in federal courts. Many of those will end up at the Supreme Court, and so they are preparing now to handle these on a tight turn. These are not petitions coming for sort of the argument on the merits about these policies. These are called emergency petitions. So Trump is looking for the court to take quick action, roll back lower court judgments, and we will see how quickly they move. They are not on a fixed timeline under any regulation, and so their action or their delay will really say a lot about how much they're willing to do here, Diane.
Devin, the Trump administration's appeals railed against the use of nationwide injunctions, saying they should be limited to the plaintiffs involved. Some justices have already raised concerns about those in other rulings and public statements, essentially saying that they give district judges this universal authority over national policy they were never meant to have. So what's the impact if they limit these nationwide injunctions?
It's a great question, and for those trying to keep up at home, a nationwide injunction is when a single court judge on a district level issues a block on some policy in every state. It does happen, but it has happened more frequently so far just in these first 100 days under Donald Trump, and so, of course, they're chafing against that. A number of the justices, as you say, have really questioned the ability of a single district court judge to issue a nationwide injunction. There is appetite on the court from at least 4 of the justices to do something about this, perhaps clarify the circumstances in which a single judge can block a policy nationwide, perhaps limit it in some way. And it is likely that in at least one of these 4 cases that are currently before the Supreme Court, the justices will weigh in on that question. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. Of course, the Trump administration is vigorously asking the Supreme Court to do something. They have an interest here. They want all of these temporary restraining orders struck down. They think these judges have too much power. But the Supreme Court typically recognizes that lower court judges have the power to make decisions. They want to give them leeway. That's the way our system works. It's a series of checks and balances. You can appeal a district court's opinion. And so the extent to which the Supreme Court sort of handcuffs their ability to issue a nationwide injunction will say a lot about how they feel about Donald Trump, Dan.
All right, Devin Dwyer, thank you.
You bet.